Dear Ross Ulbricht, it's hard to imagine what the last decade has been like for you. In just 10 days, a stranger's pen will undo one of the most controversial sentences in American history.
And if you vote for me on day one, I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht.
Your fate rewritten with a single stroke. I've been trying to make sense of your story and where it fits in this moment. Silk Road, Bitcoin, all of it. On one side of my family tree, the actions you took would have meant the death penalty in their country. On the other side, their government experimented with allowing freer access to drugs, much like you did, albeit with half measures that only magnified the very problems they hoped to solve. Your story sits at the crossroads of ideals and consequences, where freedom collides with the realities of control. But there's something I keep coming back to. What you built 11 years ago wasn't just a marketplace. It was an idea, a spark. And now, a decade later, that spark has grown into something far bigger.
Ever, the cryptocurrency has pushed past $7,000.
Now my best hope is convincing the president to commute my sentence. To that end, I want to show him and the public that I have the support of the crypto community.
The single Bitcoin has climbed above $100,000 for the first time.
If you could go back to the beginning, what would you tell yourself? And now, as you stand on the edge of a new chapter, what do you want the world to take from your story? I hope you'll indulge my curiosity. Sincerely, Julian. Dear Ross, the first time I read about Silk Road, it sounded like something out of a sci-fi novel. An invisible marketplace hidden deep within Tor, powered by a strange new currency no one could control. It felt like a myth, or a dare. You once wrote about how frustrating it was to see insurmountable barriers between the world today and the world I wanted. For years, Austrian economics and voluntarism lived as ideas in your mind, a thought experiment without a roadmap. And then, you stumbled across Alongside Night, a novel that put words to something you've been wrestling with. Every action you take outside the scope of government control strengthens the market and weakens the state.
This isn't a libertarian currency any more than it's a communist currency. It's a currency, and it can be applied to any political system, whether it is the political system you like or not.
Suddenly, the idea of building freedom wasn't just theoretical, and with the rise of Bitcoin, you could build it. That first sale, Magic Mushrooms, that you grew yourself, wasn't just a transaction, it was a signal, proof of concept, the moment when theory became practice and the abstract became tangible. Vendors arrived, customers followed. Silk Road became more than a marketplace. It was a full-fledged ecosystem. Millions of dollars flowed through every week with listings for everything from weed to stimulants, prescription drugs, and even stolen credit cards. But it wasn't just about the products. There were forums where users traded reviews, shared harm reduction tips, and talked openly about drugs in ways that would have been unthinkable anywhere else. It wasn't chaos. It was a strange kind of order. A community built on trust, anonymity, and the shared belief that the state didn't belong in their transactions. Oh yeah, and I bought an ounce of weed there 11 years ago. Sorry, Mom. Also, worst investment decision ever. But ideas like this don't stay contained. The government called it a den of criminals. You called it an economic experiment. I imagine the truth lies somewhere in between. Still, I wonder, when did you realize it was bigger than you? Was there a moment when you thought about walking away? Or did it feel like the idea itself had already taken on a life of its own? And even back then, did you foresee what it would cost? Not just for you, but for the people closest to you? October 1st, 2013. San Francisco Public Library. I wasn't there, of course, but I've replayed the scene in my mind countless times. You sitting in the science fiction section, laptop open, maybe chatting with a vendor or tweaking the site, and them watching and waiting. They'd spent months trailing you, going as far as Iceland to crack into Silk Road servers. This wasn't just about catching a man. It was about capturing a symbol, and to do that, they needed everything. The data, the evidence, the proof. They couldn't risk tipping you off by even a few seconds, allowing you to encrypt your laptop, locking away what they were after. So they staged a diversion. 2 FBI agents pretending to be an arguing couple, their voices rising in mock frustration, a public spat designed to pull your attention away from the screen. And it worked. In those chaotic seconds, another agent grabbed your laptop before you could hit a single key. Years of meticulous operational security bypassed by a few moments of human distraction. The lengths they went to capture you underscore how powerful your creation had become. Did you know it was over as soon as they approached? Or did it sink in more slowly as the pieces fell into place? Ross, do you see that moment as the end of something, or the beginning of something far bigger than any of us could have imagined?
Bitcoin is up to $100,000.
Dear Ross, the trials began a year after your arrest, but I feel like the verdict was decided long before you ever set foot in court. The FBI introduced a wealth of server logs, chat transcripts, and financial records, all pointing to your now infamous alias, DPR, or Dread Pirate Roberts. Now, that's probably a name that you never want to hear again, but it's been an important yet extremely confusing part of your story. The US government says you ran this account from its inception all the way until your arrest in 2013, but you say you stopped using it within the first few months of Silk Road. It's honestly hard to know who to believe. There was evidence suggesting that control of DPR changed hands, especially as Silk Road grew larger. Claims from other co-conspirators in the Silk Road case have even testified to running this account. Special Agent Jared Deeryagen, the lead investigator on the case, believes that the DPR accounts were once controlled by Mark Karpellis, the CEO of the infamous bank-corrupt Mt. Gox exchange. And forensic analysis pointed to shifts in writing styles, time zone activity, and operational decisions. What I would really like to know is, when exactly did you walk away from Silk Road? Why did you feel the urge to leave? And why were you logged into the Dread Pirate Roberts accounts once more at the exact moment of your arrest in the library? These are the questions that should have been asked at your trial. Instead, the jury heard about Dread Pirate Roberts ordering hits on supposed enemies of the Silk Road, though no evidence of actual murders ever surfaced. They heard about the staggering amounts of Bitcoin flowing through the site, evidence of the empire DPR commanded. But the story of your trial isn't just about what the jury heard, it's also about what they didn't. 7 weeks after you were sentenced to 2 life terms plus 40 years without parole, new charges emerged. This time, they weren't against you. They were against 2 federal agents who investigated you. These agents weren't just tasked with taking down the Silk Road, they were actively stealing from it. How does a justice system function when the very people tasked to uphold it are breaking the same rules they're supposed to enforce? Dear Ross, how did you feel when you first heard the names Sean Bridges and Carl Force? These 2 FBI agents, from what I read, were tasked with bringing down Silk Road. Instead, they extorted vendors, stole millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, and spiraled deeper into some of their own drug addictions. They ended up serving 2 years and 6.5 years in prison, respectively. Carl's defense argued that a history of substance abuse and mental health issues drove his corruption, an irony that's hard to ignore. You were punished for creating what your defense called an economic experiment in libertarian principles like freedom of choice and voluntary exchange. Meanwhile, an agent tasked with taking you down exploited those same principles, trust, anonymity, and freedom, for his own selfish gain. Carl Force's crimes didn't just betray these ideals or the justice system, they betrayed you. But many of your supporters, and even your own mother, frame your imprisonment as punishment for just creating a website. The truth is more complicated. So many of your customers weren't truly free, something that even you've come around to acknowledging yourself. For them, Silk Road wasn't about liberty. It was a lifeline to something that was destroying them. Addiction isn't a choice. It's a prison of pain and dependency most of us will never understand. Did you ever wrestle with that? The idea that while Silk Road gave people freedom, it also gave them the tools to spiral? Where do freedom and accountability collide? Extortion, blackmail, fake murders staged to entrap? Yes, there was a circus of corruption surrounding your case, but ultimately you were chosen to take the fall. So when the time came for you to finally hear your judgment, 2 life sentences plus 40 years without parole, what was the first emotion that truly washed over you? Dear Ross, today is day 4,121 of your sentence. Jan Slomp, Steven Sadler, Matthew Jones, all among the top drug traffickers on Silk Road, were released from their sentences years ago. Your co-founders, other Silk Road administrators and moderators, free after 3 years, 5 years, and 78 months. And yet, here you remain, your sentence nowhere near complete, or so we thought. As I'm writing these letters, I think back to one particular recording from you that stuck with me. It was a reflection on your time in protective custody, a place you found yourself after refusing to participate in an assault on another prisoner.
Let me start by telling you about the hole. It goes by many names, the shoe, segregation, the box, but for me it's the hole. The hole is the prison within the prison. I once spent 4 months straight in the hole. Not easy for me to talk about. The hole can make you or break you, and there was a time when it broke me. It started with my mind racing out of control. I felt like the walls were crushing in on me, like I just had to get out of that cell. This lasted days. Then I started beating the walls and kicking the heavy metal door. But eventually I realized I had to get a grip. The stress was destroying me. It may sound strange, but what saved me was gratitude. But what could I be grateful for in that little cell? Well, I had to start small. I had air, right? Maybe it was stale and foul, but I had air. I had water that didn't make me sick. Food came through the slot in the door every day. I knew I wasn't forgotten. My family, I knew someday it would be over and my family would still be there.
Gratitude. It seems like such a simple word, yet it's the one thing that can grow even in the most barren soil, even in the prison within the prison. It can take despair and reframe it, not by ignoring the pain, but by finding beauty even in the midst of it. But gratitude isn't just a feeling. It's an act of service. Gratitude begets generosity, and generosity creates the very connections that remind us we're not alone. You've lived this through your letters, your drawings, your words of hope. You've shown gratitude by giving back to the world even when it must have felt like the world had taken everything from you. It's why strangers who you've never met have dedicated years of their lives to advocating for your freedom. It's why your parents, your wife, and the Bitcoin community have gone above and beyond to keep your name alive. Gratitude in action. Gratitude is also a teacher. It reminds us that your sentence, as brutal and unfair as it is, didn't have to play out this way. For thousands, harsh sentences come with no representation, no rallying cry, no one to tell their stories. As much as gratitude has saved you, it also asks a question. When freedom finally comes, how will you show it once more? Dear Ross, 3 more days. It's hard to imagine what must be running through your mind right now. Excitement, nerves, disbelief. After more than a decade, the end of this chapter is finally here. When you step outside those gates at USP Tucson, you might find cameras, reporters, and news crews waiting. But I think what will strike you most are the Bitcoiners. They won't be there just for a paycheck. They've followed your story, fought for your freedom, and shared in your pain. And though you might not be able to stop and meet them just yet, their presence is proof of how deeply you've affected so many people. As I was writing this letter and learning about your case, I found so many incredible things. Like, did you know that you have a Bitcoin trading card in your honor? Or the song based off of your prison essay, you know, the one about the mouse? What about the crowdfunded billboard in Times Square? The dozens of bus stop ads, the millions of hats, stickers, pins, all calling for your clemency. Or my personal favorite, that the website founded by your mother, freeross.org, is permanently inscribed in 41 different Bitcoin blocks. Think about it. If we ever become a Kardashev 1 or 2 civilization, beings from other galaxies might sync that into their nodes. Maybe that one's a pipe dream. But here you are now, on the brink of freedom. Have you thought about your first meal out yet? I hear Bitcoiners love their steak. Anyways, Ross, here's to the light at the end of the tunnel. Dear Ross, by the time this letter arrives at USP Tucson, you might already be free. But just in case you do manage to get it, let me leave you with this. There's so much waiting for you tomorrow. The feeling of fresh grass beneath your feet, the warmth of sunlight on your face from an open sky, the comfort of choosing your own clothes again, a chair at your parents' table, their voices and laughter filling the air. But the world you're walking into, it's different now. It's faster, harsher, and more cynical than the one you left behind 12 years ago. Inequality is sharper, distrust runs deeper, and while you'll leave behind the physical prison walls, you can't let the world build one in your mind. That's the trap that so many of us fall into, a prison of fear, cynicism, regret. But I know you won't. You've already proven that. Your gift, Ross, is how you've used those years inside to help others out here see life more clearly. You've reminded so many of us to appreciate what we have, to hold close what truly matters. Your humanity, your art, your way of seeing the world, telling stories that cut straight to the heart. It's a superpower. These are the qualities that have the power to inspire, to heal, to connect. And now, the task ahead of you is to use that superpower to rewrite your legacy, to shape how the world knows and remembers you, not as a victim of circumstance, but as a creator, a connector, a son, perhaps soon even a father, and someone with the power to help others see the beauty in life. Life is waiting for you, Ross. Don't rush past it, notice it, share it. We'll be listening when you're ready. Sincerely, Julian.
Hey everyone, a quick message before you go. On May 26th, right before Bitcoin 2025, we are hosting a special dinner and raffle to celebrate Ross Ulbricht's newfound freedom and support his journey moving forward. There will only be 21 raffle entries / tickets available for the entire event, with each entry guaranteed rare, one-of-a-kind prizes, with the top prize being the legendary one-of-one lenticular Bitcoin trading card featuring Ross himself. The card includes some of Ross's own artwork that he made while serving his sentence. 20% of the proceeds from this event will go towards supporting two incredible causes: a fund for Ross's first venture or educational pursuit post-clemency, and the free Samurai Legal Defense Fund. It's going to be a truly unique event with fellow Bitcoiners and collectors at a fantastic venue in Las Vegas. If you'd like to join us for just the dinner experience, an additional 21 tickets will be available for that as well. However, if Ross Ulbricht accepts our invitation, there's only going to be 20 available. We expect all of these tickets to sell out really quickly. So if you'd like to join us, check out btcraffle2025.com to secure your spot. Hope to see you there and hope you enjoyed the film.